Cisco, I'd just like to introduce our organization to you and just give you an idea that, we are the MBCIA. We're the second oldest building official organization in the country, the oldest in Massachusetts. We're incorporated in 1939. We have 400 members strong, and out of the 692 building officials that are in the state. So we're primarily an educational organization. Our focus is on elevating the level of professionalism and knowledge of building officials. And one thing that we're all very proud of right now is that we've recently been certified by the state to actually provide education to construction supervisor license holders. So that's just a little bit about ourselves, and we're looking forward to your seminar.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm going to stick it, see if it will work properly. I'm going to be going through a slideshow with you guys, and this is interactive, so it's not just me speaking. I'm going to show things. Stop me anytime you want. You don't have to agree with everything I say. I'm going to talk about 3 codes: the International Building Code, the International Fire Code, and the NFPA code. And then I'm going to show our Massachusetts code, and I'm going to show where fire escapes are basically in there, and how all 3 codes basically say the same thing. Fire escapes must be load tested, and or other satisfactory evidence must be given to the building official in lieu of a load test. And that's all we're going to talk about today. But if anybody has any questions or anything related to the code, whether it's on the maintenance code, I'm going to let it all be within you guys, because I'm not a code consultant here. I'm just going to tell you what the codes are, because I teach this very same class nationwide. This class is being recorded. So if you go to firescapeacademy.com, not Firescape Academy on YouTube, there's about 500 videos of inspections and training sessions that I've done just like this, from here to Seattle, Chicago to Corpus Christi. And so if you, and this class will probably be up online within 30 days. So in case you missed something, in case some of your people didn't show up that do touch fire escapes, you can just go look on this, and it's usually a 2-hour class broken up into 2 parts. And I always throw some downtown walk-around classes. If we didn't do it with your group, we'll do it with some other group and throw it in the back. So it's very educational. If you don't like looking at your own inspectors, and you can look at other people's inspectors in case you don't like the people you're working with. But today I'm going to be working with educating you on just what is going on, not just in Boston. This is not a Boston problem. This is a national problem from the north to the south, from the east to the west. And hopefully we got enough photographs to show you quite a bit of it. So let's see if we can get going. And again, let's try to make it interactive. If you got no tomatoes, right? Nobody's got bitter. All right, perfect. So let's take a look at my job is to basically educate you. The book you have in front of you is going to sort of follow some of the slides. And we're basically with the National Fire Escape Association. It's an organization we just started because we have so much data that came from Fire Escape Services that we actually said we need to start putting these videos and then this industry standard documentation somewhere where you guys have full access to it. So a lot of the times I'll keep referring back to it. We're trying to hopefully have all our documentation in place by April, but right now the website is there. It's under construction, but we have industry standard documentation is already there, so go see it. Industry standard videos are there from all the classes that we've taught, so that's where it is. Our intention is to make so that the association is friendly to all building inspectors, fire inspectors, and housing inspectors, so that means free membership. So once we get the list, you will all be free members of the National Fire Escape Association. The people that do pay to get in it are the vendors, are the engineers, the architects, the painters, and the people who want to make money in the fire escape industry. They're the ones that have to pay to get into that association, okay? So let's take a look at one of the things let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Somerville. Paul Nani knows who I am. My dad came into Somerville when we came here from Portugal in 1971. Actually, we came here in 68. We moved into Somerville in 71. And my dad has an ironwork business still there in Somerville. Now, I'm 50 years old, actually 51 as of this January, but my dad hijacked me, guess at what age?
10, 12.
There you go, 10 years old, exactly. So I've been touching this stuff for 40 years. And what happens is I've seen everything right, I've seen everything wrong, I've done everything right, I've done everything wrong. You name it, you ask me, I'll tell you all the right ways to do it, and I'll tell you all the wrong ways to do it. And as a matter of fact, I have a piece of fire escape here that I dragged because a lot of times we do a downtown walk around right after this, and we go look at this stuff. But we were lucky, we were able to slice like a piece of cake a fire escape that is coming from somewhere in Massachusetts off an elementary school. I just took that. This is not 2 months old. Now, what I want, some of you recognize this fire escape, so what I want you to do, because I know it's not in your city. Can you please all point to what city at your table you think this fire escape you've seen in somebody else's city? Because you would never see one of these in your city. But can you point to somebody in your table that you've seen fire escapes like this in their city?
Point to Paul. Paul.
Okay. So if you could help those people, let them know we've taken one of those fire escapes away from their city. So let's get going and let's talk about the worst case scenario. Firefighters, they show up at a building to do what? Fight fires. If for some reason they have people on a fire escape, are they fighting fires or is it a rescue mission? Rescue mission, right? And they can't fight the fire. So the fire has 3, 5, 10 minutes worth of time to just burn away while they're now getting people off a fire escape. Bridgeport, Connecticut, last month.
Right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses. But earlier in the night when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. However, firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson on the scene of Bridgeport. News 8.
50 people. And not just stuck on that fire escape that they were on in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but stuck on the neighbors' buildings who they thought their building was on fire, so they came out. So here you have all these firefighters basically showing up, and they can't fight a fire. And it was contained to one apartment, but it could have taken the whole building down, and they were just getting people. Now, how can people get stuck on a fire escape? The ladder didn't come down, the cantilever didn't come down. Otherwise, most fire escapes with full metal stairs to the ground, they're made to self-evacuate. That's what a fire escape is there for people to self-evacuate, and then for firemen to use it to get out, or firemen to use it to get in and find somebody knocked out that can't get out on their own. But how does 50 people get stuck on a fire escape? So, this is one that just came, but you guys might remember this from many years ago when the Station Night fire occurred. Everybody remember that? Now, I did a class. How many people remember my class from 5 years ago? 3 years prior to that is when this happened, and then anybody met Hank Philip Ryan? A lot of my this seminars actually started because of what Hank Philip Ryan started, and when I took this nationwide to go look at other fire escapes, I inspect all over the country. From here to Seattle, I get the pleasure of seeing all this beautiful country, from California to Seattle, Vancouver, Chicago, everywhere. And your problem here is the same problem there, so there's no special place that has, beautiful fire escape. But when the Station Night fire come, she called me, and she called other iron workers, but she asked, we want to tell people that in case of a fire, you can use a fire escape to get out. I said, well, are you aware that 75% of the fire escapes I look at fail inspection? She didn't want to believe it. So I took her down to downtown by the theater district. I gave her a 15-minute class. I showed her what rusty treads look like, what broken treads look like, and what blown gussets look like. That's what I have here. 15 minutes. And I said, now, she goes, okay, show me some fire escapes. I said, no, you walk anywhere you want in the downtown, and you tell me which fire escapes pass. So she became a fire inspector that day, and this is what, she wanted to do a 1-minute piece. This is what came from.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces. All in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him.
Oh, I was scared to death.
But the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the
Correct.
fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files,
But there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.
2003. Does anybody remember receiving that? Okay. Now, anybody here from some of the cities that I mentioned? Any inspectors here from Boston? Okay.
Come on, guys, be honest.
Okay. So, Cambridge. This is a problem nationwide. This is not just here. But let me tell you what they did in Boston that really helped. Right after that, they made it, and this is all about checklist items. You can't remember this. Everybody's been short-staffed, underfunded right now, and if it's a checklist item, so right now you can't close a building permit in Boston without having a current certificate on file. So make it a checklist item. You can open up any permit in your city, but to close the permit, if you have 2 internal stairs, great. If you have an inside and outside stair, where's the certificate? You're not issuing a violation. You're asking for a copy of the certificate, okay, so you can close the permit. So that helped a lot when this came out. Number 2 is with your fire department. Start working with your fire department, because we teach fire departments, building departments, and housing inspectors, and we have videos already teaching them. But the fire department can work together with you, because you know what the fire department tells the old guys, tell the young guys in the fire department? In case of fire, don't use the fire escape. And you know who they're blaming? That the fire escapes are bad? So, 75 years of neglect, and there's been a reason. Fire escapes are the bastard child of egress. Out of sight, out of mind. You guys got more important things to deal with than the fire escapes, because they're solid, they never break. And you're right. 50 years ago, they never broke. 25 years ago, they never broke. They're 75 plus years old today. They're old, they're tired, and they look like that. And they're breaking. And you know who they're dropping? They're dropping tenants. You know who else they're dropping? Firefighters. You know who they never drop? Landlords. You know who they, well, you hang building inspectors from the fire escape after somebody gets hurt, because that's the first call that goes out is when something happens horrifically on a fire escape. It's the building department commissioner that's going to get a call, and then they want to know whose area that is, and hang that guy out to dry. So that's the main reason why. And let's see what happened in Boston. You guys, several codes out there must be inspected every 5 years. That's a fairly new thing. Before that, it was must be maintained at all times. And you know what the rule with that is? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Does anybody remember this photograph? What street this comes from? Anybody? It's Marlborough Street, Back Bay, 73, I believe. Okay, this firefighter, this is the 4th story of a building. And he's out there, and he's waiting for the ladder to come over there so we can get this woman and her niece. It was the Herald reporter that got this shot. And at the last second, he had one of those motorized cameras. He had to turn away because the last shot was this, and he won a Pulitzer Prize for it. But at the same time, it changed the code in Massachusetts, because back then it was must be maintained at all times. And then they added 1028.3, which says must be inspected every 5 years. Throughout the country, most of the codes must be maintained at all times. They're waiting for you to find it. They're waiting for you to inspect it. They're waiting for you, just like this elementary school over here that we have, to walk by and see a bad thing. This thing just came off a elementary school this December. And if we go back in one of your cities and look in the jacket, there probably is a certification for this fire escape 5 years ago. Because it was an opinion letter. And that's what we're going to cover today. Your code says very clearly, you must load test all fire escapes, just like an elevator, and or give satisfactory evidence to the building official through a structural engineer or others qualified to an official in lieu of a load test. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's the 2 things now for 75-year-old fire escapes that you have. You're going to write a violation. You're never going to write another scrape and paint violation, because as you've been writing those, guess what we get? We get that. When you start writing a violation that says repair it, paint it, test it. The test is the part that you can eliminate by saying, I will remove the load test, even though all 3 codes talk about it. I'm going to show you all 3 codes. If you give me satisfactory evidence of its strength. And who do you want that? From the owner? From the vendor? Or from a professional or a structural engineer? Who do you want it from? And certified, which means not using the word guarantee. Who do you want it from? Because anything happens, you want somebody to carry the liability, right? So let's talk about live load testing. This is a live load test, Beacon Hill. Somebody may remember this case from the past 5 to 7 years. A girl and a guy lived in this building on Beacon Hill, but this rooftop here had a roof deck, and these guys from the 5th floor went across there, and they partied on the neighbor's building at 3 in the morning, drinking. They were 26, 27, guy and girlfriend. The phone rings. Guess who wants to get the phone? The girlfriend wants it, but is that her apartment? Does she know the trick of how to get out there and come back? No. So she falls 5 stories into this pit. That's a live load test. It's missing pieces of steel, missing pieces up there that, you know. So that's one live load test. Let's look at another one. This fire escape here is in, I believe it's Blackstone. Now, what happened is that the owner of this building, before he carved it into condos, you guys remember the condo craze and everybody was a condo developer? He took these townhouses, carved them into 5, and he basically did the roof himself with his son. But when he put the fire escape back, he had extra bolts, like a mechanic has extra bolts. Do you need them? Nah. So when they were selling one of the condos, not the guy who sold it, but one of the people who already bought it that was selling it, as they're selling the condo, they have the seller and the real estate agent, the buyer and the real estate agent, and one of the trustees say, I want to look at the roof. It's been a while. Well, you should have seen all the rust on it. On the roof, on the brand new roof, as an indication that that thing was just rusting, and they all fell to the ground. So what used to be there is now there, and I'm taking a shot from one of the 3 sisters, because this was triplets. My fire escape was ready to collapse. The one that collapsed already collapsed, and the other one was ready to collapse. But everybody was mangled underneath that piece of steel. Nobody died, but guess what they did? What do you first reach for when you get mangled under a fire escape? Phone number, right? Your phone. You start dialing who? Your lawyer, and you ask your lawyer to call who?
My doctor, James.
Your ambulance?
Affiliates.
You know, call 911 for me, because that's how it started. There's now this whole condo was wrapped in litigation. Can't buy it, can't sell it because of what? Take a look at another live load test. This is in Iowa. We get called in as an expert witness in a lot of cases, and all we do is like fire escape CSI. We just basically tell the truth. And if you haven't touched it for 25, 50 years, you got a lot of problems, because there's no way you can call it an accident. It's actually negligence. And whenever you have negligence versus accident, what do you got?
Liability.
Liability wide open to who?
Everybody.
Whoever owns it, whoever signed off on it, whoever did anything. So here's a liability case. This is an owner of several properties that rents to nothing but college students in the Iowa area there. And they were all up there watching the fireworks. So what happened in the fireworks? Three kids, a girl and 2 guys. The fire escape pulls away from the building up there because the guy had his own guys fix the window, put the shingles back on, and then when they took the through bolts out of the fire escape, they put it back in with a lag bolt instead of a through bolt. So when you put those kids, they went boom, boom, boom. That's their blood, that's the fire escape, and that's the smoking gun. You know what that smoking gun was? 8 blocks away in a field. Because when we went there to basically look at the piece and do an investigation, it's me surrounded by a bunch of lawyers. This looks like the leg. And all of a sudden, what do we find is this thing is still in the field. You know, like, hey, yeah, in case you guys need to investigate. But what did we pull out of the ground? We pulled out the piece, and we found the bolt.
Hold on a second.
And then we went back and proved that the reason why was not properly installed again when they took it off. So they all have the smoking gun. This thing's still in litigation, but they're going to be settling because basically they put it back, right? Here's how they were so nervous about putting it back. I don't know who put it back, but they did through bolt it back on this side. They put a post on it to the ground, not on a sleeper, right into the shingles. You know, a nice solid, angled, solid post. These little legs over there, right into the shingles. And right in the corner over there, there was a place for a hole, the old lag bolt, to go back in and tie it into the corner. I was able to go there and lift it and walk it away again and bring it back and put it right back. Again, all being videotaped. So it just became comical because, again, no permit. And this was 2 years after the fact. Here's some additional live load testing. Now, parades in Harvard Square. They look like that, don't they? Remember in the old days when no AC? Fire escapes were what? They were bedrooms. How about situations like this? A lot of times you get these crazy things where for some reason the firemen have to take somebody out of a window, out of a back fire escape. They can't get them out the front door. Something's going on. Always something happens where they have to go through a window. So imagine saving a child and then child and fireman falling through. What we got. And also, just so you know, this right here is a worker fixing a fire escape. One of our members out in Chicago, his dad, 4 years ago, fell 7 stories doing exactly this job. Just fixing it along and boom, it let go. And he fell 7 stories to his death. Hits everybody. It's a great place to have parties. We don't have too many schools in the city, do we? And you don't go, how do you get to the upstairs apartments? It's through the fire escapes. That's where the party's at. No smoking buildings. Where do you smoke? On the fire escape. How about a wedding? College students. Candles. Where's everything go? On a fire escape. Let's find out who inspects fire escapes. Your code's very clear. Nationwide, the code is clear. Structural engineers. They're always accepted. In some states, they'll allow architects to inspect. So, and our code is very clear. Structural engineers and or others acceptable to the official. Right? So if somebody wants to inspect in your area and they want to come and prove themselves to you, if they're not a structural engineer, they have to come and prove to you that they have the credentials to inspect in your area. Some people think city officials inspect the fire escape. I can't tell you how many times after we're inspecting something, somebody says, oh, the official wasn't here, he found nothing, so you're not going to find anything either, are you? I'm like, what official? So they either blame the fire department or the building department saying, there's nothing wrong with your fire escape, just get me a certificate. And I'm like, no. But you think they want to hear me? No. Okay? And fire escape inspectors. There's only 2 licenses that allow inspections to be done. One out of Boston, which is a G3 license, which they allow you to sign the certificate. and one out of California. It's called a Reg 4. So if you have a G3 license, you can sign off in Boston and in some surrounding cities if they let you. Otherwise, surrounding cities are asking for a structural engineer sign off. If you have a Reg 4 in California, basically you pay $1,000. It's a very intense process of getting yourself licensed. 100 questions, you got to get 80 plus, aside from the $1,000. But every 3 years you got to give them $1,000. And but you're inspecting, you know, all of California with under a Reg 4 license. So there's only 2 licenses in the country. Now, there's a problem that a lot of times in California and here, a G3 license lets you fix the very same things you're inspecting. Any problems with conflict of interest there? So we strongly suggest, whether it's in Boston or whether it's in any of the cities, that if somebody is fixing a fire escape in your city with a G3 license and you've issued them a permit, which many guys don't get, make sure they back it up with a structural engineer to sign off. A lot of these guys already have engineer connections that they know that can sign off, but it's just one more line of defense to sign off on something. And if it's crap work, they're getting somebody to sign off on crap work. Or if it's good work, it's somebody that's double checking to make sure the work is getting done. So we'll cover that about opinion letters versus structural engineers versus all kinds of things, right? Right off the bat, guys, this is what we're going to be talking about. Opinions versus load tests versus certified, guaranteed certification. Ready? This fire escape, pass or fail?
Probably fail.
Fail, right? Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So it automatically failed the paint test, right? But now structurally it failed, right? So we were asked to come and look at this. This is in Fort Lee, New Jersey, which a lot of people don't know was the silent movie Hollywood of the East Coast before Hollywood became the talkies. It all went out west. But prior to that, it was in this building that they had all the silent movies. So if anybody was anybody, you did a movie inside this theater. It's now a warehouse for storage, but that's what it was. So it's in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Now, the secretary sent me a letter from the structural engineer that they got. Here's a letter. This is called an opinion letter. On that fire escape, they asked me if I use just this letter. It says, fix the one tread. I'm not going to read it to you. Fix the one tread, and there's a bent flat bar somewhere on the fire escape. Fix that, scrape it, and paint it. And this guy says he'll come back and sign off on it. But there's a little bit of a thing here that he always has. It's called an opinion letter. It's a disclaimer. To the best of my information, knowledge, belief, and opinion. Why do all structural engineers have that on their document?
CYA.
Very good. So these opinion letters, I can do this from my car. Just drive up, roll it down, look out the window. Looks good to me today. So to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief today. So we did an inspection, and we failed the fire escape to the point of almost condemning it. So now you get this problem like, who's right and who's wrong? Because a lot of times you guys take this, and you put it in your jacket, and what happens? You're covered, you think, right? But then somebody gets there, and that's what happened. A policeman responded to a call, and he fell through one of the stairs. So when a policeman falls through one of the stairs, the fire department gets involved, everybody starts yelling and screaming. This letter, is this going to cover that policeman? The secretary gave me this letter. She goes, I don't believe this letter. So this fire escape needed to be fully refurbished. But yet we have these opinion letters, and we're trying to get away from, the law is very clear nationwide. Load test it, or give me other satisfactory evidence that the fire escape is structurally sound. This is not it. So we have the same disclaimer on the Boston certificate. I believe we have the same disclaimer on the Somerville certificate. Do you guys have it to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief? Yeah. So we're trying to say that nationwide, this disclaimer has been they've been getting away with it because they've been doing less and less and less. They don't walk these fire escapes a lot of times. A lot of times it's called a drive-by, fly-by. You drive by it, you roll down your window, you grab your check, you make some observations, you write a piece of paper that looks like this with no photographs. God forbid you took a photograph. Okay? So now, this is one that's in New Jersey. I was in Chicago recently, and I got another letter that says, hey, a couple of things, scrape it and paint it. And I have a building that has, it's an old shoe factory, and there's about 150 apartments in there, and there's 3 of these fire escapes. And they have what's called the reverse cantilever bracket holders. You know, and it's basically this arm that comes down diagonally, and it picks up the nose of the end of the steel, right? And the engineer said, this thing's fine. Scrape it and paint it. Change a couple of bolts here and there. Scrape it and paint it. I was just there in Chicago, and I was doing what's called a drive-by to basically using the engineer's report, and I just walk it so I can put a bid on the job. But then I started taking photographs, and I came up with these photographs. I apologize, they must have... You guys see all that rot? I apologize that these then didn't get expanded, but bolts were coming off of my hands, and the rods all the rods, not some of the rods, all the rods coming down were eaten. So that's an 1.5 inch round that is down now to 25% of it. Every single one. And I just photographed it, gave it back to the property manager, so I can't bid this job. Not off this letter that you just gave me. He says, what's wrong? So now they have to bring in a third engineer as a tiebreaker to say who's right. The first engineer who said this was a scrape and paint? The second guy who's coming in to bid it but says here's some photographic evidence that this thing's ready to collapse and I have to shut down all 3 fire escapes. Shut down. Give one of those letters that took me away. I'm telling you, dude, you got lots of life safety issues here. Good luck. They have to bring in a third. Confidence tests. This, there was no confidence test in the nation. So we created the first one and we put it out there free of charge to all the building inspectors, fire inspectors. The first place to take it and put it on their website and adopt it, Seattle. So if you go to seattle.gov and you basically go to fire prevention, you can just go get a copy of, or we'll send you the copy of, it's either in Word or PDF, and you can put your name up there and your seal, and this is our confidence test that they copied. And you have a copy of it inside. So if you start looking inside, you have a copy of it inside towards the back. You have a copy of this confidence test. So Seattle, Tacoma, New York, New Jersey, a lot of them have adopted, this is a generic, standard confidence test. And it's a confidence test for a structural engineer. And when you read the questions that it asks not for an opinion anymore. It says, it says, are 100% of all the connections on this fire escape verified to be 100% free of all internal rust? And answer the following. All the treads are free of internal rust. Yes, no, or not applicable. Platforms, connections. We even go and tie into the back of the building. So if you want to make up one for your city, and something that's already an industry standard, and it already exists out there, go to tacoma.gov, seattle.gov, or we'll give it to your association president, and he'll give it out to you, because I got a package that I'm going to give you. This right here is the starter pack for some of you. You don't have it yet, but I'll give it to you in the middle of the class. And I've used Boston as an example of what it's going to look like if we did a tag for you, if we did a confidence test that's already, you can just download it right off the internet, and all you do is just change the top, and what we've done for you is put your code into it. That's all. You know, we put your code into it. So I'm going to send you and give you, everybody's going to get a starter pack today, and we're using Boston as an example. It's not approved by anybody yet, so Boston hasn't approved this is what they're using now. This is just I've used Boston as a sample so you guys can take it back to your legal department and see whether they accept it or not, okay? So let's take a look at some of the things that we have. It has all the requirements, all the information. It talks about renovator's license, EPA, engineer's license, building inspector's license. It gives everybody's information in a nice place for a seal. The second page, which is the most critical one. You go back. The second page, where it talks about all the structural. You know one thing we cover in there besides, you know, the bolts you can't see? How about the connections you can't see into a wall on a 75-year-old building that you can barely see beyond the veneer? This thing is not tied into the veneer. This thing is tied beyond the veneer. Well, we need answers for that. Who's going to answer that? Not a vendor. A structural engineer will get you that answer. So we have answers for that. We're going to talk about what's the concern, because if you're going to load test, you need to get some verification. You need to pass a confidence test before you can even do a load test. So the third thing we talk about that is accepted, and this came out of Tacoma when we did the certificates for them and the 5-year inspections. They came out and they also added, and we liked it, the annual checklist. Now this annual checklist means the structural engineer still does the 5. But you know who does the yearly? The building owner, the fire marshal, the building inspector. You walk through this building every year anyway, and you make the owner walk the fire escape. If it's a 5-story, the building inspector waits downstairs. He doesn't walk the fire escape. He waits downstairs and makes the guy go to the 5th floor, walk it all the way down, operate the cantilever, drop it to the ground, come down, and then sign this questionnaire which says, do all the bolts and everything look pretty good to you? So this is just an opinion. He says, all the paint is in good condition? Because if it ain't, you're going to write a violation that day. And the last thing is all the doors and all the windows, everything kind of working? So it's 3 simple questions, sign it, give it to me, and there's your yearly inspection. Here's what the tags look like. Now, Seattle has a law, and why do you think they brought me up to Seattle? Because they're proactive? Or did 3 guys fall to the ground on a fire escape that was lag bolted into a wood structure? Yes. So when we get there, they had a system there that wasn't one of the greatest, and you could literally self-test your own fire escape. So they came in, we gave them the confidence test, we gave them the training, and guess what they came up with? And they have a tagging system. Every fire escape that is certified by a structural engineer has a white tag on it, just like an elevator. Permanently affixed to the fire escape or next to the building in a permanent nature so that it's 7 to 10 feet off the ground. You have to be able to read it, and you have to read when the next inspection is going to be, who the engineer was, and who the vendor was that did the work. So you don't have to wonder whether or not back at the office, this fire escape has a tag. You walk by it every year, and even the tenants look, hey, this thing was like, needs a reinspection, just like an elevator. How many tenants tell the maintenance company or the management company that their elevator's out? So you need something that lets the people know. And if the fire escape is bad, you got a yellow one on it. If the fire escape is dangerous, you got a red on it. Now, we are telling you that it took 75 years to ignore this bastard child of egress. You're not going to fix this overnight. What we're suggesting is that you just get into a point where you're going to identify all the fire escapes in your city only. You guys are going to get tags that have your city information here, and you only put up reds and yellows. You have a program where all fire escapes in your city must be tagged like an elevator. That's all. You just need a tag. And this is nothing but a safety tag for the safety of the tenants and the safety of the firemen who are going to use it until such time that all the fire escapes get certified, which could take 5 years. Because you got court, absentee landlords, you name it. But in the middle of the night when you got a firefighter showing up in a smoky situation, and the gray-haired captains have been telling him, in case of fire, never get on a fire escape, never get on a fire escape. And he gets there and there's a white tag on it. Guess what he can do?
Welcome to Fire Escape Services. We provide inspections and certifications, repairs, and load tests to remove violations in your area and nationwide.
So whether you're an inspector or whether you're somebody, you have your own home, you have your own building, the first thing is the law is very clear. It must be structurally sound and must be kept painted. So is the fire escape painted or is it not painted? And does it have more paint than rust or more rust than paint? So I can just look at this fire escape and say that I have evidence right now that there's more rust than paint on this fire escape. So immediately, if you were to call an inspector out here, the law doesn't allow him to pass this fire escape simply because it has more rust than paint. And structural means that if the fire escape is 50 to 75 years old, when any inspector is looking at it, he's got to see some evidence of maintenance. And maintenance means that I have to see a change in bolts, I have to see a change in rivets, I have to see some new hardware. Because when I go up to a fire escape, I see nothing but original hardware. That hardware is 50 to 75 years old. It's been out in the weather 50 to 75 years, and it's just impossible for not one of those rivets, one of those bolts to be changed in 50 to 75 years. And whenever that occurs, what I have is a fire escape that somebody's been constantly painting, but they've never done anything structurally to it. So now that makes the entire fire escape pretty much suspect. So now I have to be careful as to what I'm looking at to make sure that the structural now, on especially the major structural connections, are in good order.
Thank you for watching our video. Please call us today at 800-649-3333 to discuss your fire escape issue with a live inspector or schedule an inspection in your area today.
Not go grab the ladder, not wait for the apparatus to get him to the 3rd floor, just jump on it. But if he gets there and he's got yellows and reds, what's he got? He's got taxi meters on them that somebody in the city is taking care of this situation. The guy's either getting dragged through court or whatever because it's sitting there with a tag that can't be removed. Now, we were teaching a class, and in the class was a state building inspector. And the state building inspector was talking about what can be done to help you guys sort of get this under control when it comes to what, do we need to change the law? Do we need, he goes, it's very simple here in Massachusetts. You can't just go change codes the way you want without affecting the code and having some blowback. He goes, but you can have departmental procedures as a standard. So we came up from that class working with a state official. We said, okay, what can we say? He goes, you got to keep it generic. You can't tell them what to do or how to do it, but you can tell them more or less how you guys would like it done. So let's open it up to this page. I'll read it along. This is a sample because, and here we can send this to you, and this is either in PDF or in Word. You can modify it any way you want, get rid of all the pictures. But what we do is, if we do it for you, we put your website up here, your city website. We put your name and phone number over here as a contact. We don't have any of our information on here. And even if you don't like the National Firescape Association.org, you just click it and you delete it. Okay, get it out of there. And down here is the building code. Okay, so let's talk about the building code. So let me tell you, if you're an inspector, so if you have these, you can just send these out. You wrote a violation, someone says, what do I do? You send them one of these, either electronically or they have a bunch of them printed out on your desk, and you hand it to somebody who just got a violation. Now, let me tell you what the person has to do. And this procedures and guidelines is used nationwide, ready? So if for inspections, which is what you're calling for as soon as you write a violation, this is what you want from a structural engineer or others acceptable to you. In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a registered structural engineer or others qualified and acceptable by the fire or the code official to do a critical examination in lieu of a live load test. Criteria submitted or discussed prior to the inspection, meaning, guess who's going to call you before they go inspect this firescape you wrote a violation on? This structural engineer. And issues written verification and certification that all the connections are free of internal rust or rot, as well as all original hardware, which is the square heads or rivets, bolts or rivets, are reinforced. So I can keep beautiful 50, 75-year-old rivets. I can keep them if I back them up with another bolt somewhere nearby, because they are 50 to 75 years old. So if somebody's in love with their 50 to 75-year-old bolts and rivets, keep them. But I need a backup bolt behind it somewhere near it. Or replaced in lieu of a live load test. Well, sometimes for me to drill a hole, it takes me 7 minutes. It takes me 3 minutes to knock out a square head bolt and put a new bolt in there in a perfectly good connection. Not a bad one, perfectly good connection. It takes me 2 minutes with an impact gun or with a cutting disc to get that square bolt or that rivet out. So whatever's cheaper for the client. You think 2 minutes or 7 minutes is cheaper for the client. So all supports, through bolts or cemented into the wall, must be verified in lieu of a live load test. So this engineer now has to verify the connection into the wall, and he can do that. He comes over here, if there's a sheetrock, he can open up a little hole, and from that Home Depot snake that you buy that has a little camera, what's he do through that little half-inch hole? He sticks it in there, and he goes to verify the plate that's inside all your wood structures. Is that verification enough for you? Because the thing takes pictures. Is that verified? That thing inside is good? Or if it's not verifiable, he must verify it from the outside, as it says in here. A firescape confidence test and tag must be submitted to if the firescape passes. So that confidence test we have in here must be given, and the thing must be tagged for you. The report with photos identifying violations for repairs must include repair criteria submitted to the official for repair vendor to use as a guide during and with the engineer's oversight of permitted repairs, if required. You know what everybody hangs and plays on when it comes to repairing firescape? Are they repairing it or painting it? With some small repairs. What do you think everybody in Massachusetts does that's a vendor? That's an ironwork vendor. Are they repairing it and then painting it, or are they painting it with some small repairs? I'm painting it with some small repairs. That way, in case you show up and ask me where my repair permit is, what do I say? I'm painting it. You don't need a painting permit. And then you apologize like crazy, and you say, I'll go pull a permit if you really want one, and you know, that's the comment, because the violation you wrote said what? Scrape it and paint it. So I'm only following the law, sir. 75 years of that. That nobody's been pulling permits. I mean, a handful here and there, but I'll tell you, 90% of the firescapes are getting repaired without a permit. That's going to change. A firescape confidence test and tags identifying certified conditions are then submitted. Recommended cycle for live load testing is 20 years after a total refurbishment of a firescape. If you totally refurbish a firescape, you want to load test it 5 years from now? The average cycle nationwide is 20 to 25 years on a full refurbish. If I spot repair this firescape, I got to load test it. If I find the fire escape in great condition, I can load test it now. I am not going to load test it for another 20 to 25 years because it's always the opinion of the structural engineer and the building official as to whether or not a load test needs to be done in 5 years if the thing has been refurbished. The connections into the wall. We talked about, verifying them. Can I just duplicate them? You guys know that it's going to cost me a mason $200 to $500 to blow all the bricks around each bracket, open it up so I can look at it. Oh yeah, it's bad. Let me change this one, but not that one. Or can we just let sleeping dogs lie on these 50, 75, 100-year-old buildings, and about 5 inches away from a masonry connection, can I do a 3/4 hole and put an 8 to 12-inch epoxy bolt from Hilti, and then mechanically fasten it back to the original connection and repack the original connection. So my original connection now is my secondary connection. What's my primary? The new one. So can I just duplicate it to avoid the verification process, which is $50 for an epoxy, $200 to $500 for damaging all the bricks? Will that fly with some of you? Flies with everybody in the United States that you just duplicate the connection. What would you like to do?
Well, I think if you duplicate the connection, isn't it just as good?
No, that was the question. If I duplicate the connection and I keep the original,
right.
My thing is sometimes you got to let sleeping dogs lie because by the time you start touching bricks, things start falling apart around the bricks that becomes a can of worms. Whereas 5 inches away, I just blow a new epoxy bolt in there, and in some cases you can unify the connections. You put a 3x3 angle underneath all the supports, and every 2 to 3 feet you put an epoxy bolt into the angle, and where the angle touches every support, you reconnect it there. So now you've unified the entire wall. Yes, question?
This is just talking generally. I would try to not to second guess the original designer's intent when he placed the fasteners where he did. And my first attempt would be to remove the original fastener from the hole. Many of them are rotten in my experience anyway.
We're going to
Cut
show.
the head off, you pull them right out. There's nothing there. They don't go. Many of them don't go through.
Yeah, they're 8 to 12 inches deep.
In fact, the next one I find that's through bolted at Back Bay will be the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, I do a lot of work at Back Bay over the last 30 years, and I thought those pitches that were going up before were all Back Bay and along Bay State Road.
Yep. Let me show you a couple more. So
I would, without trying to second guess the original designer, my first concern would be to try to get the original fastener out. Because you start moving things around, you start asking the people.
No, the original stay. The original supports stay. The new connection is what you move, and you use the epoxy bolt or a through bolt if that's possible. So, on this first one, is that clear enough for any structural engineer what you want? Which means that you want to have a one-on-one with this structural engineer, right? Who's going to tell you the results of this findings? Yes?
Just because the document talks about copyright, there's a couple of things that we're adding. Like when you said acceptable by the buyer code officials, that should actually say building official.
Right. I use it. This is generic.
Can it be modified?
Oh, yeah. When I send it to you, it's a Word document. You can go in and say, I don't want it to say this, I want it to slightly say this other. I don't even want to use this page. I'm just going to copy some of these words, drop it into your own city documents, and use it that way. So feel free to use that. So that's what the engineers are going to read. Let's talk about what the vendors are going to read, because they're going to have questions also for the building department. And instead of answering it, you can email this to them, or you can have them come by and grab this from off your counter. So here's a repair guy's problem, or that he has to deal with. In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a qualified licensed repair vendor to do all the work on the repair permit, if required. Because some of you guys keep saying, well, we don't always require. So, okay. So normally, anytime you touch a structural anything, you have to pull a permit, but I put in there, if required, with engineer oversight of repair criteria submitted for approval to the building official. So this first guy sent you the report, talked to you, and got together with a strategy of what they're going to do to fix this fire escape. This vendor is not under your oversight. This vendor is under the engineer's oversight, who's the final guy who's going to sign. Because a lot of times these engineers are doing an initial inspection, and they're forgotten for 6 months. And only after the fire escape is painted is this guy called back to sign off on it. He did no oversight in the middle. Okay? So we're saying here that this fire escape can be repaired, and if you're going to avoid the load test, you want full-on engineer oversight, keeping an eye on the vendor. And that vendor is using some guideline, which is photographic evidence, a repair document that that the inspector and the engineer have agreed, this is what I want done to that fire escape, come have your vendor pull a permit. So that engineer is there day one when they start doing the job, telling them, this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to do it. That engineer is going to be there in the middle of the job, when the work is halfway through to see how's he doing, and is he doing everything per the book? And then that engineer is there at the end to basically sign off on the job when all the repairs are done before it gets painted. Why does the engineer want to sign off on this job before they start painting?
Paint hides the multiple.
Paint hides everything. I can hide more things with paint and silicone than you can ever shake a stick at. You got rust? No, you don't. Not after I put silicone over it. So some of these guys will change bolts, will weld this, will weld that. Okay, so we're going to tell you one of the reasons why, you know, silicone and paint should be done after, because right now you've got some examples here of the right way to fix fire escapes and the wrong ways. I got a totally welded, bastardized fire escape here that is currently being done. And I've got bolted fire escapes over there that has connections and rust still in it. I've got another piece of fire escape with bolts and silicone in it. And it's primed, meaning how hard is it for a structural engineer to walk a fire escape and look for brown blotches all over the fire escape? Once he signs off on it, then you can fully paint it. But until then, you need that kind of oversight, and you don't have time to go check the fire escape. That's why they have, the owner has a structural engineer who's going to be giving the guarantee at the end, a certified document, because that's what your code says here. Load test it or certify it. So we're going to go into the interpretation of that. So let's, all connections must be free, though. So this is the repair guys. He's already got some general activities he's got to do. Ready? And this is the repair criteria submitted for approval to the official in lieu of a live load test, meaning this engineer is trying to convince you not to load test this fire escape. So all connections must be free of internal rust or rot, spot primed and sealed. All worn material must be repaired or replaced. All supports into walls must be reinforced, repaired, or certified in the fire escape confidence test in lieu of a live load test. All square head, bolts, rivets, and welded connections must be certified, reinforced, or replaced based on age and conditions. All ladders and cantilevers must be balanced and drop to the ground 2 to 3 feet per second and hit the ground and stay down and must lead to a public way. All roof ladders must be secure. No full painting of any fire escape until the spot painted repairs are inspected and certified under engineer oversight, and or the city official may want to go there and sign off on it before it gets painted. If it's a full replacement, that's a whole new ball game. That's a whole new set of plans, approvals, and stuff like that. So is that general enough for any vendor who wants to work in your city to know what you want? Okay, so again, we try to make this as general as possible. Painting. In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a paint vendor, EPA certified. Is that required nowadays? Fire escapes, anything older than 1978. How many people have some fire escapes older than 1978? All of them are presumed to have lead unless you give evidence that it has no lead or low lead, and that must come from a certified lead inspector. But, you know, this fire escape, it's kind of dark, guys, but has lead. And this is at a elementary school. Maybe that's who's been eating all the paint off this fire escape, is all the little kids at that school. I don't know, but anything with orange usually at the bottom as a base is a lead-based primer. So we're telling these guys, if you're going to touch a fire escape, it's got lead on it, unless you got a document from a certified lead inspector that says it's got low lead or no lead. And that's per EPA, so that guy's got to have a renovator's license. And do all the work per the EPA guidelines, which, you know, lay the plastic, wear the white suits, the gloves, the little mask. Because everything is presumed to have lead that is EPA, unless identified as no lead or low lead by the licensed lead inspector. Entire building must be notified with signage. All precautions shall be taken to collect paint chips at grade. No sandblasting without full encapsulation. No power-assisted scraping without fire escape being totally encapsulated under the EPA guidelines, and now you're using oxygen masks and all that other stuff. All major connections shall be sealed from water intrusion before, during, and after painting. All escapes should be spot painted every 3 to 5 years and fully painted every 5 to 10. Canada of Rust-Oleum, you know what it says when you got to repaint the whole entire fire escape again? 7 years. Under perfect conditions. We have perfect conditions here in Massachusetts? So, with that, layman's terms. Now, some of these guys do all three. Some guys inspect, repair, and paint it. So they have to follow all three guidelines. Sometimes you get 3 people. You got an engineer doing the inspection, you got a vendor doing the repairs, and then you bring in some Joe Painter. They all can get the same document. So we can send you through your association, and then they get it off to you, or if we collected your card and you want it, give us a call. We'll make, and it's a pretty simple document to make. It just takes a little time. but we do it every day, is we go to your website and we clip your front page. We take your name and phone number, we just put it up there. We already have the Massachusetts building code, and everything else is generic. Let me show you what the building code says. So we can make it, you can make it. This is what it starts out as. This is what tags look like in Seattle. They want them 19 inches by 11. Ours is 8.5 by 11. But they basically say the same thing. They want a red one for life safety problems. They want a yellow one while it's under repair. And they want a white one if it's certified 7 to 10 feet off the ground, permanently affixed to the fire escape. Good idea? This is what it looks like on a building. That's a tag from Seattle. This is a tag from Massachusetts. They both say the same thing, but within 7 to 10 feet off the ground. Do you know when the next inspection date is? Do you know who did the inspection, what his license number was, who the service was, who the engineer is? And the code is right there on the tag. And it's very clear, fire escape has no deficiencies. This is here in out by Worcester. This is a detention center for kids 17 and younger. So if your sentence didn't get you, guess what's going to get you? This is in a courtyard, an inside courtyard. 25 to 50 years of growth, unchecked. Takes a 1/4 inch. Now this is from a metallurgist, not me telling you. A metallurgist in a lot of my cases, it takes 25 years to grow a 1/4 inch of rust in a connection. It takes 50 years to grow 1/2 inch of rust. How big is this? Right? Ready? Now, you guys only need to, when you walk up to a fire escape, to identify that it has nothing but original hardware. You can do that from the ground. You don't have to get on them anymore. If there's evidence that the fire escape has not been maintained in its lifetime, don't get on it to go show them where the broken tread is, because usually your foot is stuck in it. Here's why you don't want to walk a fire escape up or down. Because when we inspect fire escape, we hammer test. Not as part of a fire escape inspection, but it's a safety inspection for us as to whether or not we can even get on it. So with a 3-pound hammer, we walk up fire escapes slowly, that our treads are falling already, and we do this.
Okay, I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Stay down here, so I don't get hurt.
Why go any further? It was that was a horrific fire escape. Cantilevers, guys. Let me tell you a little bit about cantilevers. They're supposed to be with a release arm. When you release them, the word release means somehow you got to release it. When you release it, it's supposed to drop 2 to 3 feet per second, hit the ground and stay down. Okay? Because right now when you walk out, if you have a fire escape in your city, and nobody, it was perfectly balanced, did not even have a release arm on it. It's perfectly balanced, you're supposed to step on the first one, it automatically activates it, and as soon as you get beyond a certain point, it drops to the ground 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground and stays down. Tuned like a Swiss watch. But when it snows, guess what happens to these things?
They go down.
They go down. Guess who gets a call at 3 o'clock in the morning? No, the owner. Hey, there's somebody breaking into the building, you got to come down. So, pigeons land on the nose. Guess what happens? So for 75 years, you know what the answer was when the thing was not perfectly balanced and you had to balance them every 5 years? And the rust box started filling up with rust, because rust grows to 5 times its size and its weight. What starts happening, it starts looking up into the sky. You stop by, walking the streets, and you see a fire escape leaning north, leaning to the let's call it north, and you let it go long enough and it does this, you're going to just walk by and let that alone? Or are you going to write a violation? So you write me a violation, I'm the owner of the building, I make a phone call to an iron worker, you know how much he wants to rebalance and get all that weight out? He wants $2,500. I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I call my best friend Charlie, who's kind of a fix-it kind of guy, goes, oh, dude, I go down Home Depot, $25, I get a chain. And I grab a chain and I chain it here and I chain it back up to the grating up there. How many people have seen chains everywhere? Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, everywhere. Those are there so that the fire escape looks horizontal. But because of that, what do I have to do? In order to get out, I have to come down the stairs and I have to go out how many steps? in order for me to counteract that extra weight you just threw on the back. Right? I go out 3, 5, 7 steps, and what happens?
Wham.
Does it come down to 2 to 3 feet per second? Comes down at 5 to 10 feet per second. So now it's a violent situation, and I'll show you one. But let's get a scenario going here. A woman and a child coming down a set of stairs. The woman's $150, the child is 50, and the woman comes down and she starts walking out with the child in tow. And the woman goes out 3 steps. Does it go down yet?
No.
She goes out 5 steps plus. Does it start to make a move? It goes down 5 to 10, slams the ground. Is there any screaming and crying going on? 2 possibilities. That woman's going to get ejected. The child's going to get ejected, but they don't. They hold on. It's a nice story. So they go all the way down to the ground, and the woman gets to the last tread, 150 pounds, steps off the thing, and she's got the child behind, and what happens to that child? Catapults. Nobody's there videotaping it for YouTube, so the child gets catapulted, or no, the child holds on. It's a great story. The child is holding on. This child is 12 to 14 feet off the ground. That's where they all are. And what's the mother tell her?
Jump.
Mother says, jump, jump, jump. Kid says, no, no, no. Mother screams, mother yells, mother in pajamas. She runs where?
Back into the building.
Back into the building? Just before she gets back in the building, she needs what to get in the door? Keys. Does she have them with her? She's frantic. She's looking for bricks, stones, anything to smash what?
Windows.
Windows or front door? To get in, the fireman showed up, said, what's the problem? Got my kid in the back. Fireman runs back there. Looks up at the child and tells the child to do what?
Jump.
Kid goes, hey dude, I didn't jump for my mother, I ain't jumping for you. Fireman goes, I got an idea, and he runs back to his truck, and he grabs a fireman's pole, you know, the pipe pole, and does what? Grabs 12 feet up in the air, and he pulls it down, and he puts his foot on it. Child's reunited with the mother. It's a beautiful story, I told you. They go away. What's that fireman have to do now? 6 more guys, more firefighters show up, and there's flames and debris falling everywhere. And these guys need to get onto the building through the fire escape. What's that one guy doing right now? Holding down a fire escape. Is that what they were originally intended to do? So that 6-man crew became 5. And as soon as he takes his foot off, what's he got to do? He's got to go pull and put it down. Otherwise, anybody up there that wants to get down, what does the fireman have to do?
Walk out.
Gingerly walk out and... There's a fire escape out in Chicago. I just want to show you how violent it is every time it slams the ground. These are usually 12 to 14 feet off the ground. They usually have a mechanism on them. That is either placed correctly or not, but it has a mechanism. See? And I know what I'm doing, and somebody's telling me what to do, how to do it wrong, but I found it like, said, dude, stop telling me what to do. I know what I'm doing. So I basically release it, right? And here's how you release it. You push it forward. It drops the ground 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground, and stays down. Is it pretty violent? But it means you're going to get down to the ground. See, it's down to the ground and stays down, but it wiggles and shakes, so it's not a pretty thing. That's why by the time you release it, by the time you get down to the pivot, it's already done its whack and its shake. Then you get on the cantilever. We happened to be there, and what showed up while we were there? You know, one of these trucks. Now, watch how close. Now, this has a release arm to hold it perfectly horizontal. Anything that gets out of balance, which they do in all the alleyways in Boston, for example, what do you think tears down a lot of fire escapes? Moving trucks and cement trucks. Now, this is how close he got to that, but look how close he gets to this one, and see if you can notice the chain on it. See the chain, the illegal chain? So, whenever you see a fire escape in your city that has a chain on it, it's illegally, it's out of bounds. Has to have a release arm. So let's take a look at what release arms look like. Oh, this is in Waltham. Anybody ever been to the Waltham Fire Academy or the training center? Yeah, we went there to inspect that for them, and we shut it down that day because it started doing this. It had broken treads on the very fire escape that these guys trained on every day. So don't think it's just firefighters, building inspectors. Everybody has basically ignored the bastard child of egress. This is rust. This is up in Chelsea, the Chelsea homes up on Chelsea Hills, the Soldiers' Home. We identified these emergencies. 2 years later, they fixed them. It was the government. But there was emergencies 2 years before. But this is just to show you that if the war didn't get you, the fire escape will. So fire escapes, it can save lives or take them. Damage, trucks, smashes. Now this basically, it's a life safety issue. It should shut down a building. These are some housing buildings that hold, Section 8 housing and such. Anybody recognize the City Hall? No? Okay, he probably doesn't want to put his hand up. No?
Could be any city hall.
Could be any City Hall, but it's that's the City Hall that had the missing treads. There was broken treads and missing treads on that City Hall. I think it went to the mayor's office. This is that fire escape.
It's not a bad idea.
This is the fire escape that we have here, and I took photographs so that we can show you just exactly what happens. First of all, just to make it clear, 98% of all the fire escapes in the United States are bolted connection fire escapes for a reason. They heat up in the summer and do this. They cool down in the winter and do this. The building sways and moves through minor earthquakes, and they do this. As soon as you weld it, and there's plenty of fire escapes out there that are welded, and they only make about 1 to 3% of the entire market is welded fire escapes. They do this. And anybody that has welding skills know that microscopically things start tearing. But fire escapes traditionally are all bolted connection fire escapes for 100 years. That's how they were made. Now, with welded fire escapes, sometimes you'll have somebody coming into your city and welding a fire escape like they did here. Only problem is in 2010, the EPA said you can't weld or bring a torch or put a flame to what? Lead. To lead. All fire escapes in the United States, other than 1978, have lead. So can you weld fire escapes ever again in your city? No. But this is what they do. They'll come in and they'll do an emergency repair on the nose. They'll put a clip on the top. They'll put a clip on the bottom. They'll leave the bolts. You guys, after the show, come down and take a look. If you want to know the wrong way to fix a fire escape, I did that for you. And it's right there because I left the rust and I welded it. Now, anybody that knows what rust grows every year, right? A 16th, an 1/8. So the welds stretch or the welds snap? Welds snap. On average, when you repair a tread, if somebody gets away with it, and that weld is going to grow a 16th, an 1/8 over a year or two, can a weld hold it? So it's going to rip. A welded repair today that's signed off by an engineer is going to rip itself in 1 to 3 years. Does everybody agree with that? You're not going to re-inspect this for 5, though. But the law says you can't weld them anymore. But thank God that 98% of every fire escape you're ever going to fix in your city anyway is a bolt anyway. Now, the typical welded repair looks like this. A truck shows up. 100 feet of cable shows up. A guy, not the owner of the business, shows up. A guy jumps on it with or without a fire permit. With or without an extinguisher. On a fireproof building or a wood structure. With leaves on the ground or asphalt. Right? And he starts welding. Now, that's how they've been fixing it for 75 years. Same guy now shows up in his truck. Same guy, without the owner, with a permit, drags 100 feet of extension cord, puts his impact gun with a star socket, puts it on the square head bolt, and goes da 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 da, and it goes snap. Takes a pin and pop. Removes the first one. The second one he strips with the machine. He grabs his grinder with a little cutting disc and he goes. He goes pop. He takes the tread off of this side with a hammer. He whacks it. Guess what falls out? All the rust. He wire brushes it. He cleans it. He lifts it. He takes 2 bolts from Home Depot. 3/8 bolts. He goes, tightens them, repeats it on the other side. Done. Takes the extension cord away. No fire permit. No welding on site. certified repair? Do I need a load test after we rebolt and refurbish the tread? Do I need to load test it? Nope. Will an engineer sign off on that as a certified repair? And then when that thing is nice and tight, he caulks it with 50-year silicone. Question?
Grade 8 hardened steel bolts.
Oh, that's a great question. I love it. Ready? What fails a connection? The bolt or the connection? The rust in the connection. So you can take a tread. I'll take one of these treads and I can pop out one of these bolts, or both the bolts on one side on a connection that has no rust, or even if it has rust. I'll take a hardened piece of wood, a dowel, and I'll slam it in there, and I'll make you walk up and down. And I can find a wood that will take 100 pounds per square foot. Load test. All the bolt does is stopping it from shearing. All the bolt does is it's holding the connection. As long as that connection is tight, you can use standard bolt, grade 5, grade 8. So it's not whether you're going to use a titanium bolt on this. It means nothing. The connection is not, it's getting torn. The bolt is torn. A grade 8 will get torn when the rust grows. It'll tear a standard bolt. It'll tear a grade 8 because nothing can hold ice or water. It's called rust jacking or ice jacking. I don't care what you got, it'll rip it. Okay? A weld needs 60 or 70,000 pounds to rip it, right? You put rust inside of a welded connection, it rips the weld anyway. So bolts, the standard out there is they use standard grade bolts, and a lot of times it's just grade 5 or a standard bolt that you buy off the shelf. Because the connection, once it's sealed with 50 of silicone, when's the chance of that rust getting in there ever again? Rust needs two things, water and air. So, just showing you all the types of connections and all the things that people have done. So, can you weld in your city anymore on a fire escape? Can I change all the bolts? Yes. This is what typically happens. You're going to see this, that they weld the nose, but the bolts stay. See all the rust? This is typical. Somebody will fix a fire escape and weld the nose. The reason you never see that is because you guys, since you didn't pull a permit, there's no final walkthrough by you guys. There's also no final walkthrough by the structural engineer, because it's all painted black. Looks good to me. So this is the piece. This is the original. That's the replacement. Again, point to the city near you that you think it belongs to, because it's never from your city. Elementary school was using this fire escape, feeding a playground in the back, recess playground. And the guy that made me change that was not the principal, was the facilities manager that said, dude, get this thing out of here. It's going to hurt or kill somebody. And yet every year, fire inspector did his annual. Every year, the building inspector did his annual. And nobody ever wrote a violation on this. And if I go to that city and go back, there's probably a certificate on it from 5 years ago. That's an opinion letter. This is in everybody's cities. By the way, this is not about whose city this is. This is in everybody's cities. These things are hiding in the background. It's the bastard child of egress. They're hiding under bridges. They're hiding in the back. You can't see this. You start walking out of here, you're going to start seeing more fire escapes in your city than you've ever seen before, because you didn't want to see them either. Oh, this is Rutgers. I threw this in because we got a lot of crazy fire escapes in. But when I go around the country, this is the only one I've ever seen. A fireman's pole fire escape on a student building.
All right.
I've never seen another one like this. A fireman pole, double. Not a single, a double.
His and hers.
It's a his and hers.
Climb up one and come down the other.
My girlfriend would die before she got married.
Guys, I took this picture from the Bridgeport, right? The Bridgeport fire. This is by far one of the best pictures out of the Bridgeport fire. How old is that kid? Where's the mother? Where's the father? That's an 8-year-old kid. And that ladder's not working. Why is that ladder not coming down? Could be out of balance. Rusted in place. But 50 people in that building were stuck until the firemen got everybody out, and then they fought the fire, and the apartment was a total loss because they were busy in a rescue mission.
But right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses. But earlier in the night, when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. However, firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson, on the scene of Bridgeport, News 8.
Every one of you has got buildings that look like that. Every one of you. This is what they were facing that night. What didn't happen was what happened here in Boston. But this was the scene in Bridgeport. This was the scene. The lady's nervous, the child is nervous, but in Bridgeport, guess who else was nervous? The firemen saying, get me off this stupid thing. Because every now and then, even though they're told don't get on them, at Bridgeport, what did they have to do?
They have to get on.
They have to get on them. They can't yell up at a person and say, hey, my chief says I can't get on it, like jump. Internal connections. This is a 22-story building that was going to be used for housing in Chicago. This is that $200 to $500 investigation. That's what it costs to go and find out what's rusted. A load test will tell you, because when you load test, you know what a pass looks like on a load test? Does anybody know what a fail looks like? It's a pile of rubble on the ground. Now, every now and then, what we suggest in certain cases is let sleeping dogs lie, because even though you got all this rust coming out that's indicating that there's something going on inside, 5 inches away or 10, we put in a duplicate connection and tie back to the original connection, or we do what's called a unification of the supports. If I've got 5 supports, I take a 3x3 angle that's 12 feet long, I got holes in it every 3 feet, and I'm epoxy bolting the entire angle into the building. And then wherever they touch the original connections, what do? I mechanically fasten it back with a bolt. I basically duplicated the connection so I can eliminate the need to verify the internal connections. But I'm at salt now at 200% of what the law requires for the load test. So with new epoxy bolts, new Hilti epoxy bolts into the wall, can now I perform a load test if the rest of the fire escape on the outside has been refurbished?
Sure.
So the rule is very simple. Spot repair, then you got to load test your fire escape. Fully refurbish your 50 to 75-year-old fire escape, can we avoid the load test? If you've also gone in and verified to the inspector that you've either duplicated the connections or they're 100% verifiable through destructive opening and or duplication or reinforcement. The engineer is going to prove this to you, not the owner and not the vendor. Because water does get in between the veneer and the masonry. Through the parapet wall. It rains for 75 years inside this building without them knowing. There's another building we did in New York. Same thing. And they were fixing other problems besides the fire escape problems. They were fixing sills that were cracked and getting water. A lot of these sills had ACs already in them. And guess what ACs do all year long? Drippy, drippy, drip, and they ate the inside of these fire escapes. But this is very costly to go in and verify every connection. So we're saying, let sleeping dogs lie. It's a lot cheaper. It's $50 versus $500 to deal with a connection, and it's an approved connection. It's either going to get epoxy bolted into a masonry block wall, through bolted into a block wall if it allows on the inside, or on a wood structure, everything's through bolted with a plate on the back. Questions so far?
But
Yes?
the problem with that,
Just not so much a fire escape question, but what have you seen in other parts of the country as far as building officials doing that? You find that the fire escape is deficient, shouldn't be used, and now you get secondary means of egress not being there. What do they do with the occupants of the building?
Well, on average, in 50 states, 40 of them are run by fire departments. That's who writes all the violations. In 10, it's the building department that writes the violations. They have a choice. They either put a fire watch, they vacate the building, but I got a great answer for you that I give to all of them. Any fire escape that's out of whack, can I call Joe Scaffolding from that city and put in a full set of scaffolding with stairs all the way up and tie it into a piece of the fire escape that is sound while they're repairing this fire escape that's out of, totally out of commission for whatever reason. Scaffolding is your answer. You can scaffold any building and put up a temporary means of egress for $1,000, $2,000 a month while they're dragging you through court, while they're making all kinds of noise so that you don't have to vacate the building, because every now and then children, old people, you've got some situation that this building can't be vacated and the fire escape has got $5,000 or $50,000 worth of problems and they're under foreclosure, they have no money, whatever the sob story is going to be, scaffolding. And even if the city has to order the scaffolding and charge it to them, tie it in, scaffolding is the answer. And they have scaffolding that will meet the 7-Eleven rule. Okay?
Excuse me.
Good. Yes?
Seems to be the problem with epoxying into the brickwork is that most of the brickwork, like in the city of Boston, needs all to be pointed, and the bricks are just setting in there. There's no strength in
Again, then you go to a through bolt. You have to go to a through bolt. Where the engineer and you are going to, if you're concerned about the strength of a wall, your engineer is going to do additional testing for you to say, you're right, the inside masonry wall is crap. It's all porous and falling apart. We're going to make them through bolt this, and I don't care what damage they do on the inside. We got to put a plate in here, and we got to bury it, or we're going to expose it. We tell the client the epoxy on this building is not going to work, but on many buildings it will work because there's a hole inspection to say that it will. For example, in Seattle, you can't put an epoxy bolt in the hole until you call the hole inspector to come and verify that the hole is ready for the epoxy. So that is just, it's an answer, but if the epoxy is a problem on your old building, then the through bolt is always the answer for every structure that's ever gone up. You can't lag screw a fire escape into a building. You can only through bolt it, or epoxy bolt it, or cement it into the pocket.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems in Boston because the facades are falling off the building. So
yeah.
They're star bolting and through bolting to hold the walls in.
We would just sandwich it in. Well, here's an example of what we have to do. This is in California. So the verification process is also grabbing a drill and you start drilling next to the steel and you open it up, and this is another way for us to just basically throw in a camera and start verifying that the steel is all good all the way down. Very destructive, very costly, and you got to do it to every connection. There it is. That's a 3/4 hammer drill. I sometimes have to drill twice in order to get a good enough hole for me to get a good enough view. If I take that same hole and I go 5 inches out and I epoxy bolt it into the building, then I mechanically fasten back with an angle clip, why do I have to expose what I think is already a good connection? It's got no tears, no rust coming out, but I have to verify it as an engineer. So what do? You do an epoxy bolt. So it only makes up about 3% of the whole fire escape to basically verify the tie back into the building, which nobody does on these opinion letters that you guys are getting. Nobody does. But this is a 75-year-old building. They have to now. Otherwise, load test it. The load test will tell you if it's a bad connection, right? But if there is a bad connection back there, what do we have on the ground after the load test? Scrap.
We used to have an engineer in Boston that used to load test them by jumping up and down and saying, oh yeah, that's a...
Well, we use Tom for doing that. Tom's one of our load testers, and he's retired. Yeah, he's retired now. We said, Tom, you can't do that anymore.
How do you load test it? How many fails?
How do you load test it? It's a great question. Look, a 3x5 platform, or even take a 2x10-foot platform. That's 20 square feet, 100 pounds per square foot. That's 2,000 pounds. I got to bring sand, water, plates, not people. Put them up there under an engineer's oversight, engineer's letter, we'll give you a copy of a typical load test, but this is how simple it is. Then you got to take measurements. You got to load it with 40% of the weight first. Take measurements. Can't deflect more than 3/16 of an inch. Videotape, photograph, and then put the remaining 60% for the remaining 20 minutes. Take measurements again, see if there's any deflection. If it passes, repeat that on all the other platforms. Now, like you're on a tree limb. What side do you saw on the tree limb? From the tree side, from the thing? Because as you put these weights down, you are part of the load test. So how often do people want to load test without having some other mechanism to be on while you're load testing the fire escape? So that's why load test is not a very thing. I've been in this business for 40 years. I've only done one load test, and that was in California. And not because a city official said load test it. The owner on a 10-story building wanted to load test it. But he said, but it's very expensive, and you know, he goes, I want to load test this, but it's going to cost you crazy money. He goes, I want to give money to you, and I'm like, okay, I will take your money. Even though we fully refurbished it, and this is what it looks like. This is all the inside. This building was masonry. It was through bolted. There was a couple of them that had, you know, some exposed, but we verified everything. We said, dude, you don't need to load test. The law doesn't require you to load test it after we verify that it's been structurally refurbished. Oh, I want to load test. I have extra money in my left pocket. I want to give to somebody. And he gave it to us. So this is what the load test looks like. You know, and we use the cable through the center of everything, and we basically load tested 3,000 something pounds on every one of these. And there's our, you know, you use that strain meter. I forget there's a name for it, but it, now I'm caught here with a brain hemorrhage here. But basically, as you pull on the cable, and what do we use? We needed 3,000 to 5,000 pounds on the ground. We just used a truck. So we lifted the tail end of this truck, and we repeated it every fire escape. And then you have to back up every fire escape against another fire escape in case something wants to give. The other fire escapes hold the pieces. It's a long process. It takes all day, and speaking with the engineers. Now, let's talk about fire escapes out there that are missing pieces. Some fire escapes are missing their rails. Some fire escapes are missing their guardrails. Some fire escapes are missing treads. Here's another case. There's a firefighter that we were an expert witness on. He went to this floor to get a woman and a child out. He fell through 3 treads over here. Hit the floor below, went back up, got her, got off out of the building, saved her and the child. He was 27 years old. When he hit the ground, when he was finally all done, the adrenaline wore off. He had basically done something to his spine. He's no longer a fireman. He sued the owner, even though he had, you know, he was on disability and all that. He sued the owner for negligence. Not as an accident, because when they did the investigation, the metallurgists, the inspections that we've done, basically proved that this fire escape hadn't seen a repair in over 25 years. And the law says you must maintain it at all times. So it showed that the owner, who owned the building for that period of time, never ever fixed the fire escape. We got back there 2 years after to do an investigation, and when we got there, this is what we found. Broken treads, missing treads, and when I got there, my foot fell through. So now let's talk about how fire escapes were made 100 years ago and how fire escapes are made today. Please open to your book here. And we're going to start talking about just all the components of a fire escape, okay? And as soon as I get through what a typical tread, how I make a typical tread, then we're going to go into all the pieces of a fire escape, so you'll know how every fire escape in the United States is ever built. They haven't changed in 100 years. It was so good when they built it the first time, nobody's ever innovated a different way to do it. Okay? So, tread. Every tread, 100 years ago and today, comes in a 20-foot length. You cut it all into little pieces, and you put the 2 pieces together. You have 2 options. You can drill it and bolt it, drill it and rivet it, or today, everybody puts it together and welds it. For treads, do they paint or prime the 2 pieces of naked metal before they weld it together? No. Back then, they didn't have welding, they just bolted it together. Do you think they primed the area before they joined them? No. So they put the 2 pieces of metal together, they put a rivet in there, and basically, and then they tie it into a clip, and the clip gets tied to a stringer. So when this fire escape goes up, they usually put it up primed, and then they start painting it. Now, what all rust needs in order to grow is air and water. That's why you have a paint. It's a sealant. As long as it's sealed, will that connection ever grow? No. So, in the summer, a tread on a connection does what? When it heats up? Expands. And then in the winter when it cools, what's it do? Now, the paint that's holding it, what's it do?
Cracks.
Cracks. Letting in what?
Water.
Water and air. The 2 things rust needs to grow. We call this rusty gold for a reason, guys. All right, so it starts to grow over here within the first 5 years. You're supposed to maintain your fire escape and paint them every 3 years. Spot paint them every 3 years, fully paint them every 5 to 7. In the 1900s, how many people were doing that religiously till today? 0. 0, thank you very much. With that, what you get is into the second part. They just kept painting over the rust. They never cleaned the rust, they just cleaned it because it was the beginning surface rust. It's very minor, it's right at the top. You can usually brush that away and repaint. Did they do that? As soon as you paint over rust, what's the first thing to give away 1 month later? The paint on that rusty area. Not the other stuff, but on that rusty area. But then it starts growing and it gets into the connection and it's got a 16th and it's got this rivet that's they put in that's only about a ½ inch, 3/8 to ½ inch long. And it wants to come down. It's going through about that much. And it's a rivet. So even though I got a 1/16, an 1/8, or 1/4 inch inside my connection, but I got a pin there, can my tread fall? Nope. Because I got a pin there. See, even though I got a little rust growing, that pin, which is still solid, won't let the clip drop. That was 25 and 50 years ago. You can stop on a rusty fire escape with rust in its connections, and you're not going anywhere. But now let's go to today. That pin now has grown to a 1/4, 3/8, and it did this to the outside of the pin or the bolt. And you got some examples here of connections where the bolt is gone, the head's still there on both sides. But once it's out on the outside and you step on that tread, what happens? You fall through. The tenants fall through. So 75 years later, not 25 years ago, 25 years ago, not many people were falling through fire escapes yet. But the 75-year-old fire escapes you're looking at today, the pin has moved to this point where it's basically a hand grenade. You step on this landmine, and what happens? So when we walked back there to go do the inspection on this fire escape, we found this much rust sitting in all the tread connections, even though the fireman got hurt 2 years ago. We found treads falling as we were walking on them. Now we have a fire escape full of lawyers, and we're falling through the treads already that hurt the fireman 2 years before. His lawyers and the lawyers for the fireman. And basically the fire escape treads that the guy fell through were perfect. They were rebolted. Everything else was left the way it was. So they settled the case right after this because it proved the guy was not only negligent before the fireman, the guy was negligent now because imagine you dropped a lawyer during that investigation.
How many lawyers?
That was a great great little joke, you know, busload of lawyers going off a cliff. What's the worst? What's worse than that? Inspector training. Here we are in Lowell, Massachusetts. Bob, say your last name. Marsiglia. Italiano? Si. We're here looking at, he's the building commissioner in the city of Lowell, and we have a fire escape right down by our feet. What's the greatest thing about this is we're going to be able to see all the rust in the connections. We're going to see all original hardware and squares. We're going to basically, he had a class today, and what we're basically looking at is a fire escape that no more paint is on it. So this is a perfect one because I can get my nose right into it. And this is a perfect example of everything that can go wrong with a fire escape. Let's talk about this one. And then we're going to go look at these other ones and a big monster that's on the back. So this may be a 10 to 15 minute video, but what is on here works there. So let's take a look. More paint and rust or more rust and paint? So that's all you need. Let's say they knew you were coming, Bob, and they painted this thing 100%. What are you looking for next?
The original hardware.
Original hardware. So let's show people what original hardware is. This is a square bolt. Square bolts. Square bolts. And some of these, so now let's stay underneath here before we get on that side, Bob. How about grating? Any popped grating of the spacers?
Yeah, the spacers are missing.
So what that means is when a fireman or a person steps and your leg goes through that, you get locked. You can't save yourself because now you're trapped with a bear trap. How about rusty tiers? Any rusty tiers indicating that water's getting into the connection?
Yeah, right there in front of you.
How about cement blowout into the back?
Yeah, you can see that too.
See cement blowout. Okay, let's take a look. Any damage from a truck or anything? Any bends on this fire escape? Okay.
Looks like that might have been hit.
Got hit. Let's take a look at is it square heads or rivets on the supports? Are those original or have they been switched out in the past 50 to 75 years?
No, they're original.
Original. To let this fire escape rust this much, how many years? To get 100% of your paint off your fire escape?
25 at least.
At least 25. Is there any paint that you can still see left? But even though there's no more paint on this, does this thing, which is older than 1978, have lead still in it?
Yes.
So it still has lead. Let's look at all the rust in between the connections. All this rust. Let's look at your treads. Missing spacers?
Yes.
And let's look over here underneath. Better before you climb up above. If I had my hammer, I'd do a hammer test. Any rust in any of the connections?
Rust in all of them.
Rust in all of them. The bulge. You can see all the bulges, right? Yeah. Is there any of them that if you were looking up straight up, can you see the sky if you look straight up on some of these? You look over here. You see that one right there? Can you look straight up?
Yeah.
How about this one over here? See all the rust? Any of these bolts that are holding as best they can, any of them totally gone? Are they all suspect in your mind?
All suspect, yeah.
would you allow any of these to be welded and remain in place? Because that's a typical repair.
This has a, on the top, 1/4-inch gap.
Yep. Now let's see how it lands on the ground. Is this all rotting on the ground?
It's all rotted out on that side especially. The channel is completely rotted out.
So the channel is completely gone over there? Okay. So, and how much rust? 1/4 inch every 25 years. How long you got of rust there?
Well, that's 75 years of rust there.
75 years. All these treads are 1/4, 3/8, 1/2 inch. If I was to stomp along on these, you think some of these would give way? Some of them have been patched with some welded bars. This is a typical repair when these flats give out.
Yes.
Lots of bends and smashes. I'll go slowly up this fire escape. I won't go too far, but you got enough evidence here that this is a perfect candidate of how bad things get when you just leave it alone. Have your inspectors ever walked down these alleyways?
Yes.
And why didn't they write this one up?
Well, we haven't had the program yet. But we have.
Maybe they did and nobody paid attention. Maybe they didn't know what to look for. And if it ain't broke, why fix it? There's also other reasons too. It's just it's not the priority. People think these are great. They've always been great. That nobody's ever fell 25 years ago. Yeah. Nobody fell 50 years ago. And they think that these things are indestructible. But now this is what I call a hidden time bomb. This is a grenade with a pin already pulled out of it. A fireman or somebody coming out of that top is going to fall down these stairs and get hurt or jammed or stuck.
Yeah.
So this is part of the 101.3. All exterior steel or wooden stairs.
Correct.
Okay. Is this an exterior steel or wooden stair?
It is.
Is there enough water falling on it?
There's plenty of water falling.
Got obstructions?
Yeah.
This is fairly new. This is 10, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Nailed together. Safe, solid, you think? We wiggle it a little bit? Okay. Does this need to be inspected on the 101.3?
It does.
So all exterior steel or wooden stairs need to be inspected. Need a permit to repair this?
Yes.
Renovator's license?
No paint on it.
No paint on it, but they can stain it. There's no paint. How about this one? All exterior steel or wooden stairs. What is this?
It's a steel bulkhead stair combination.
This is a stair. This is an egress. We're missing anything here?
Handrail.
Handrails are missing.
It's over 30 inches.
Let's take a look at that. There's water falling on it. These are all metal. Any bulging rails or this looks like an adaptation to a bulkhead plus a stair.
It is, yeah.
But it's missing its rail. Yeah. It's fairly 15 to 25 years old. You estimate? Does this need to be inspected and have a cert on this?
It does.
Okay, so because it's 101, all exterior steel wooden stairs. Now let's take a look at this one. Now this is going to happen a lot of times. You can't even get access. Yeah. So let's talk about access. This door right here, which has a lock, is illegal because now these people cannot egress. It's very simple. On the inside, there's a push bar. Yeah. That's all you do. So whenever you have these gates that do whatever this thing is doing here for the trucks, that must be able to be pushed out. So that's a simple modification to make that a crash bar door. And then if you mesh enough of this, you mesh this, then nobody can put their hand in and force the door open. Right. So that's a neat, but it's illegal to lock somebody in a cage. Now, let's talk about from down here, and I can't get any more closer, from down here, more paint and rust or more rust and paint on the entire fire escape?
It's about equal, I would guess, but
right,
mostly paint, mostly rust.
Mostly rust, so it needs a paint job. Now, from down here, and I know you can't see to the 5th or 6th floor. You just need to look at the 1st floor. Any evidence of maintenance, any shiny hex head bolts in this 50 to 75-year-old structure?
No, I see a mix of square head and rivets.
Okay, square heads and rivets.
So it's 50 to 75
50 to 75 years old. No evidence of maintenance.
No evidence.
Is every connection on there suspect then?
Yes.
Any release arm on there that you can see that would let that cantilever drop 2 to 3 feet per second?
I can't see a release mechanism.
So you're not sure whether even the cantilever is balanced correctly?
Correct.
And you're looking into the cement into the walls. Anything that you want to share? Can you see any rusty tears and any of the cement going up?
Yeah, I see signs of spalling and rust.
Okay. So right from here, and what about the grading? Let's talk about the grading.
Yeah, you can see the spaces are rusted out.
Spaces are rusted out in a lot of the grading. So again, as an inspector from down below, and you start looking up, a lot of these buildings that are 50 to 75 years old have not seen a certification in at least 25 years. And it'd be great if they had a tag, and it'd be great if you can get out of this building in case there was a fire.
Yeah.
But here in this one little alleyway, we have a major egress system, and you talked about ACs in the windows, which is illegal, and you have units in front of windows that people have to use to get out.
Well, they got the windows blocked off.
The windows are blocked off with cages. Again, a lot of that was because of security issues, but that's not your. They have to resolve that.
They have doors that lead out to the.
And they have doors, but sometimes the windows are the only means for another apartment. The doors are from a hallway, but every now and then to satisfy that piece of the building, they use the window to get. That's why they put that little add-on. So don't think if all of a sudden there's a hallway door feeding it.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why they put that little half circle there. That half circle is to pick up that window to meet the means of egress inside, because that is the only second means of egress for that apartment is through the window, which is now blocked by ACs and units. So right from here, you have a fire escape. So right in this building, in this alleyway, and I don't think we have any more down here, you have what 101 covers. Wood, all exterior wood or steel, fire escapes, fire escapes. And this one is the best because all original hardware on this one. And this was a great one. Don't you think that it showed everything that could go wrong with a fire escape, it showed on this one. And this is what you use in training. And look at the staircase. See the whole stringer, how it clips up there?
Yeah. All
original hardware. So sometimes it's not the treads that'll kill you, it's the whole staircase will let go and fall to the ground. So we're going to go look at some more fire escape Academy Inspector Training. We're here in Lowell with Bob, the Commissioner. And in this city, you touch a fire escape in the city, he wants a permit, he wants a renovator's license, he wants engineer oversight. Otherwise, this fire escape will not be allowed to be certified, or he wants a load test. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training videos. We're here in Lowell, Massachusetts. We got Bob Marsilia. He's the building commissioner here in Lowell. And we're doing some downtown walk-around training. And these are just some of the standards that he's looking for. This is the Sun Building. And this is a great building to look at simply because it's beige in color. A couple of things we look for. Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So did it pass the paint test? More rust than paint, or more paint than rust? So that's all you really need to know. But let's say somebody painted this whole thing. What other things can we look for? The next one for structural is original hardware. Any evidence of maintenance just from the ground. You don't have to go up 10 stories. Because if they didn't fix the first floor, they didn't fix the 9th floor either.
No, these are rivets too.
So these are all rivets indicating that this is older than 75 years old, because rivets are 75 plus years old on average. Square head bolts are 50 to 75 years old on average. Now, do you see any icing or dragon tears and rust coming down the wall?
Everywhere.
So that means you know that the wall is getting penetrated with water. Let's look at the grading. Is the grading showing any displacements on the spacers that keep the grading?
Yeah.
How about the treads going up? Do you see rust between the angle clip and the flat bar on each side of the stringers?
Yes.
When you're looking at the clip that holds the entire staircase up above, does it look like it has original hardware or any repairs, any evidence of maintenance anywhere?
Negative. No, it's all original.
There used to be a cantilever here, I believe, that they took out because you can see all the cuts, and they put in this fold-out. And this fold-out ladder is an example of what you can put in some cases when the city allows it, but you lift that latch, and when that latch opens, this ladder actually opens to the right side and it opens up into an 18-inch. And a lot of times you can find out whether it's in good condition or not if you can pull it just by, but it looks like it's frozen because if you don't keep these things oiled and greased, they don't open up even when you release them. Yeah. A lot of damage. You can even see that the bottom plate up there is pulled away. Okay, so now this is a very obvious. Now also, you have an EPA rule here. Fire escapes that are older than 1978 have lead as a base. You think this fire escape has lead?
Yes.
So you need to be a licensed renovator. So anybody fixing this fire escape is not only have to be a licensed renovator, must pull a permit to do any repair work on this, must have engineer oversight, and the engineer must make sure that there's a permit pulled. The engineer needs to do 3 to 5 visits, and on a fire escape of this magnitude, it's probably going to be 5 to 10 visits to verify every connection. And into the wall, what do you want them to do? You want them just to patch up at the veneer level, or do you want to verify or nullify these connections into this wall?
They all have to be, they can't be verified because they're all failed. You can see the expensive rust.
Right, lots of tears everywhere. So on this one, would you recommend individual connections back with epoxy bolts, you know, the Hilti's 8 to 12 inches, or would you want unification, which is a piece of angle 3 by 3 going along the whole length underneath, and every 2 or 3 feet, as per the engineer's order, epoxy bolt all of it, the angle, and then the angle clip ties back into all these T-bars. Because you know what the problem is with the wall on this on the front of the building. Would you want individual epoxies, or would you want unification as a better method here at this building?
Probably unification, but then the existing individual beams that are coming out look like they may be in need of replacement in some cases.
Well, that's a different story. That's either sistering. You're mainly concerned about the tie-ins, because even if they're rotting near the beginning, we can sister that up and pick it up, because the angle, the 4x4, can pick it up beyond any rusting or any problem at the wall level. But unification is what I would recommend here, because we have a problem wall on this building that's older than 1920s. So unification would give me more strength than individual. So this one is an easy giveaway, because this is a beige fire escape on a white building, and you can just see all the problems. But let's look over here. And again, you don't see any evidence of maintenance. All original rivets. This is 75 plus years old. Let's look at this one, and what kind of bolts you see here? Rivets or squares? And this is a dark, gloomy day, so it's dark here. So, you know, for you to be seeing fire escape rust, it's very difficult. I mean, you can see rust on this one. But now you're an inspector and you're coming down here, so it's an easy thing. More paint than rust, or more rust than paint on this fire escape? What do you say?
This looks like it has more paint than rust.
Okay, so you can't get them on the paint maintenance issue, but now let's take a look and see if there's been evidence of maintenance. Let's just look for any square heads. So on from the side here, any of the gussets, you see any hex head bolts anywhere? On anyone, you see any shiny new bolt anywhere?
No, they look like they're all original square heads.
So they're all original squares. Let's take a look over here on this cantilever. This cantilever, any evidence of maintenance? Any evidence? You see rust blowing out?
I see a lot of rust, I see square heads.
And you see this contraption here, they've attached things to the cantilever. You got the weight box on both sides. Any maintenance to the weights? Release arm, perfect release arm. Look all this smashed release arm.
Yeah, the release arm is not working because it's in the open position now.
Yeah,
so
it's in the open position.
It wouldn't be working, so this thing is
out of balance.
out of balance. It looks like it was pinned up.
And let's see where it's pinned, and it got hit by a truck. Do you agree that it got hit by a truck?
They put a wooden dowel above the door to keep it from dropping.
So they got.
You can't.
It won't even come down. So you got a life safety issue now, because these people are going to come walking out as far as they can until that dowel gives way, and then what's happened? You're going to have a collapse. How about obstruction? We got plenty of obstruction on this fire escape.
Yeah.
Okay. You look up. You got evidence of maintenance on any of these treads and any of these fire escapes going up?
No evidence.
How about the wall, going into the wall? You see any rusty tears? Any blowout? Any spalling?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So even if they painted this fire escape, the fact that there's no hex head bolts anywhere is evidence that there's been no maintenance in 75 years, in at least 50 to 75 years. Let's take a look at this deck. This deck is made out of steel or wood?
Steel and wood, it looks like.
So cement to a wood lip of some kind. You think that's safe or rotted?
It's deteriorated.
Okay. So
Wood
let's.
decking is all rotted. You can see it's got asphalt on it.
Let me tell you something. This building right here, whose fire escape is this? Is this the right side fire escape? Because it looks like there's a door up there. Because it looks like this fire escape on this independent building shares this fire escape. So who has to pay for this fix? It's this building. Because this fire escape belongs to them. This fire escape uses this fire escape to get down. Now, do you know what happens when a fire escape, do you think that was truck damage? Right there?
Possible.
Well, I mean the bend, you think people came out and bent it? Or you think it was truck damage? Now, are you aware that the law says that in case there's truck damage, whether you know who it is, this is a hit and run, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Whether this was done yesterday or 25 years ago, the insurance on this building will fix this fire escape. This is what we call a fire escape lottery ticket, because I have to fix this fire escape and bring it back to operational condition. So the owner is going to get a violation on this. If he gets the right guy that knows how to advise him, he's going to say, dude, the insurance company is going to fix this 100% for free, simply because if you know who the truck is that smashed it, no, I don't know, then your own insurance with your deductible of $1,000, $2,000, or $5,000 is going to fix this thing 100% because I got to bring it back to operational condition.
Just the damaged area?
Not the dam. The whole fire escape must be brought back to operational condition. So, no, because this is a different building. If this building was hit for any reason, he feeds into this one. So the insurance company has to fix this whole cantilever for this guy that you're going to write a violation on.
Look at the electrical up there.
Yep. Electrical is usually 10 feet away because if you stop pouring enough water on this fire escape during a fire, it's going to cause an electrocution of some kind.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, these guys who are writing the violations, they don't see enough of this. But the beauty about your new system is that when they walk back here, they put a yellow tag or a red tag here. Which one do they hang? They red tag this one. What about that one?
That's definitely a red tag.
These red tags are going to do what for the firemen?
They'll keep them safe. They would realize they can't go up on them.
And what about the tenants who pay rent here? What would a red tag do for them?
Might be able to withhold their rent.
Withhold their rent and say, hey, you know, it's not safe. Make it safe for me. So this is alleyway inspection, Firescape Academy inspector training. We're here in Lowell, Massachusetts. Inspector training. Firescape Academy inspector training video. So here we are on a decorative balcony, frozen windows. Those windows don't open. So this is truly a decorative balcony. But 2 rules. Must be functional. Use it or lose it. So one of the ways that they always deal with this, if this has, and most likely it does, 2 means of egress inside, these no longer satisfy the means of egress. One of the things that they've always done is remove all the grading out of it. As soon as you remove the grading, you still get the effect. You still have the decoration as part of the historical. Historical doesn't, but as soon as you remove that, it lets the firemen know they're not going to use it to get in. It lets the people know inside that they're not going to use it to get out, and that they have to get. But this looks like a fire escape that has all original hardware. Needs to meet the 100 pounds per square. So either you use it or you lose it. So by removing the grading, you've told everybody it's not a functioning means of egress for anybody to be using. Okay?
Okay.
So that's, what's this, the New England Quilt Museum? So that's a quick answer. And now they're just sort of just painting, because this wraps the whole building, but none of the windows open. As you can see, they're all just, you'd have to smash out the glass in order to get out there during a fire. But they got sprinklers, they've got alarms, they've got everything you need to basically get everybody out of this. But it is an unsafe structure because nobody's ever fixed it. And it's as old as the building. Okay? Easy one on this one?
No, easy one.
Okay. Firescape Academy inspector training video. Here we are in Lowell. And we're doing some downtown walk around training. Through bolts or lag screws?
Lag screws.
Into what? Into, it does have the shield. See the shield? See the lag shields?
Coming right out.
Coming right out. So, but this is typical. So this fire escape with fairly new grading, this fire escape is probably about 25 years old.
Every bolt.
And somebody didn't know the rule about through bolting. So what did they do? They just lag screwed it with shields into the brick. So it's only hanging on by the veneer. And how's the veneer look on this whole building?
Not good.
Not good. So needs a paint job. You can't load test this because it's illegally installed. And let's talk about now, looks like an apartment. Would you agree that this is an apartment?
Absolutely.
Okay. And now you can get to the roof, but how do you get to the ground? And most ladders must be 7 to 10 feet off the ground. So I need a ladder somewhere here or somewhere on the other side, 7 to 10 feet off the ground, so I can jump down.
Which looks
How you
like
doing?
inspections. Might
Yep.
have been a remnants of something there.
Yeah, used to have, you're right, they used to have what's called a fold-out ladder, which is good. You know what's good about that? Right now that you saw that fold-out ladder that used to come straight down here used to fold out. You know what I'm saying? It's called a fold-out ladder. But somebody removed it because somebody was breaking into the building. But you still need to put it back.
Yeah.
They either need to have a permanent ladder 7 to 9 feet off the ground, but this whole fire escape system is, and a lot of it is because of this door. So there's probably a restaurant on the other side of this door.
Yes.
And so most likely what they're gonna have to do is, take the ladder and put it down to this side. Because they have their property line.
It also looks like the ladder that's mounted to the roof is mounted the same way.
Right. A lot of times ladders are not through bolted. They're attached the same way with lag screws. The platforms must be through bolted. Ladders can be attached because it's multiple attachments all the way up. and that's usually a roof access ladder only. So this one right now is looks like an improper installation and an illegal installation, because now it's a question of, was there ever a cantilever down to the ground, or was there ever anything? Otherwise, this one looks like somebody came in and saved the last piece, which is that ladder. And a lot of times they have to prove to you they had a ladder here before. Otherwise, you make them put a full staircase to the ground in an alleyway, which is another problem. And a lot of times you go back to the building permits to see if there's any record of any request to build such a thing. So, again, Fire Escape Academy, inspector training, alleyway training.